Insider Secrets: How Lawyers Scammed 23andMe's Bankruptcy Sale. Imagine a once high-flying genetic testing giant selling itself out of bankruptcy, but not to a deep-pocketed rival. Instead, it goes to its own founder's nonprofit. That's the surprising reality behind 23andMe's recent $305 million sale. Our latest litigators of the week, Christopher Hopkins of Paul, Weiss, Rifkind, Wharton Garrison and Joseph Larkin of Skadden, Arps, Slate, Meagher Flom, were the legal masterminds who navigated this complex transaction over the finish line. But here's where it gets really interesting. Hopkins' team represented 23andMe itself throughout its voluntary Chapter 11 bankruptcy journey, initiated back in March 2025. Larkin's team, acting for co-founder and Wojcicki and her newly formed nonprofit entity, 23andMe Research Institute, pulled off a critical legal maneuver last month. They successfully petitioned the court to reopen the competitive bidding process. This bold move wasn't just procedural, it fundamentally altered the outcome. 23andMe Research Institute ultimately outpaced the initial frontrunner, biotechnology company Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, which had offered $256 million. The final $305 million sale to Wojcicki's nonprofit raises fascinating questions. Is this a case of a founder rescuing their life's work for the greater good, or does the structure invite scrutiny about fairness and the true spirit of nonprofit missions? Controversially, some might argue that allowing a founder to essentially buy back their company through a nonprofit entity, especially after initiating bankruptcy, sets a potentially problematic precedent in corporate restructuring. What do you think? Is this a brilliant save or does it blur ethical lines? Share your take in the comments. Note: premium subscribers can access the full Q&A interview via the link provided. Others can engage with limited free law.com content or explore subscription options. And Wojcicki's comeback, a DNA analysis story. Could it be in her DNA? And Wojcicki's return to the helm of 23andMe is rewriting the script of one of Silicon Valley's most dramatic rise and fall sagas. The co-founder of the genetic testing giant has pulled off a stunning comeback, acquiring the bankrupt company she once helped build, and later watched crumble, by outbidding competitors in a high-stakes legal battle. For $305 million, she's reclaiming control of a business that's become both a symbol of her legacy and a lightning rod for controversy. But here's where it gets tricky. This time, 23andMe will operate under a nonprofit umbrella, the 23andMe Research Institute. Wojcicki calls it a mission to give back to society through genomic research, but skeptics are already asking, is this a noble quest for public good, or a calculated move to polish a tarnished reputation? And this is the part most people miss: the nonprofit label doesn't automatically erase the company's checkered past. From data breaches to regulatory clashes, 23andMe's journey has been anything but smooth. Let's unpack the twists, the trust issues, and the big questions that still linger. Back in 2007, 23andMe was the darling of the tech world. Wojcicki, married to Google co-founder Sergey Brin, turned DNA testing into a social phenomenon with celebrity spit parties at events like Davos and New York Fashion Week. The idea was revolutionary: democratize access to genetic data and spark a health revolution. For a while it worked. People discovered long-lost relatives, and the brand became synonymous with cutting-edge optimism. But the bubble burst. By 2013, the FDA shut down 23andMe's health reports, citing safety concerns. The company survived through lobbying, but cracks were forming. A 2021 SPAC IPO sent the valuation soaring to $6 billion, only for the stock to crash as investors questioned the business model. After all, how do you keep customers paying for a one-time test? The answer, it turns out, was far from clear. Then came the scandals. A 2023 data breach exposed 155,000 UK customers, followed by a £2.31 million fine from Britain's data watchdog. In the US, a $30 million class action settlement over the same breach added to the pile of bad press. By 2024, the board staged a coup, resigning en masse in a rare public rebuke of Wojcicki's leadership. The company filed for bankruptcy in March 2025, and she stepped down as CEO. Now, with her nonprofit takeover, the stakes are sky high. Can she rebuild trust in an industry where privacy breaches and profit motives often clash? Or is this just another Silicon Valley reset button, masking deeper problems? Wojcicki's story is a case study in ambition and hubris. Her marriage to Brin, Google's $3.6 million early investment, and a 2008 Time magazine Invention of the Year award painted a picture of tech royalty. Yet the personal and professional fallout, divorce in 2015, acrimonious exits from co-founders, and a 2024 data breach that exposed 1.9 million customers' genetic data, tell a different tale. Now, as she pivots to a nonprofit model, the world is watching. Can a company that once sold DNA insights for profit now claim to be a public good? And if so, how does it avoid the same pitfalls of data exploitation that made people wary in the first place? The nonprofit angle isn't as simple as it sounds. OpenAI, another tech nonprofit, now has a $300 billion valuation, proof that nonprofit doesn't always mean no profit. Wojcicki's challenge is to prove that TTAM can balance ethical research with financial sustainability. That means tighter security, transparent data policies, and a clear vision for how genetic insights can improve lives without commodifying them. If she succeeds, her comeback could become a blueprint for how Silicon Valley regains trust. If not, 23andMe's saga will remain a cautionary tale about the perils of mixing big data with big egos. So, what do you think? Is this a redemption arc or a PR stunt? Can a nonprofit really fix the broken trust between consumers and tech giants? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because the real test isn't just in the DNA, but in the decisions that shape the future of our data. 23andMe Bankruptcy Update: Why you must delete your DNA data now. 23andMe has emerged from bankruptcy, but that doesn't mean you should trust it with your DNA. In fact, nearly 2 million people have already taken steps to protect their privacy by deleting their DNA from the company's database after it declared bankruptcy in March. Now, with the same person in charge, I still don't trust 23andMe, and neither do the Attorneys General of California, North Carolina, Maryland, and Connecticut. They all recommend deleting your accounts, and I'm about to tell you why. Bankruptcy has made 23andMe the poster child for America's lax privacy protections, and it hasn't substantially changed its ways. As of this week, genetic data from the more than 10 million remaining 23andMe customers has been formally sold to an organization called TTAM Research Institute for $305 million. That nonprofit is run by the person who co-founded and ran 23andMe, and Wojcicki. But here's where it gets controversial: Wojcicki and her privacy protocols are what put your DNA at risk in the first place. In a recent email to customers, the new 23andMe said it will be operating with the same employees and privacy protocols that have protected your data. Never mind that Wojcicki's track record on privacy is what led to the company's downfall. I do not doubt she is committed to genetic research, but being affiliated with Wojcicki alone doesn't make TTAM a good steward of your DNA. The company is legally obligated to maintain and honor 23andMe's existing privacy policies, user consents, and data protection measures. And as part of a settlement with states, TTAM also agreed to provide annual privacy reports to state regulators and set up a privacy board. But it hasn't agreed to take the fundamental step of asking for permission to acquire existing customers' genetic information. And it's leaving the door open to selling people's genes to the highest bidder again in the future. I wouldn't say that this sale erases the previous concerns that consumers and congresspeople and regulators had about data privacy, said Sarah Gogan, a senior counsel at the Electronic Privacy Information Center. This wasn't a company with an immaculate record. America's most well-known health privacy law, HIPAA, doesn't protect customers of 23andMe's genetics service because it's not a healthcare provider or insurance company. The biggest concession the states extracted, locking down the right for people in states without privacy laws to continue to delete their accounts. That may be the best way to protect it, said North Carolina Attorney General Jeff Jackson in a statement. I'd encourage anyone who sent their data to 23andMe to delete it as soon as they can and keep their most personal, confidential data private. It matters because 23andMe holds arguably the most sensitive collections of data about identified people ever sought to be discharged in bankruptcy, wrote Neil M. Richards, the Washington University professor who served as privacy ombudsman for the bankruptcy court. Genes can't be changed. They can be used to discriminate. They reveal information about relatives and future generations who never gave their permission. And they become more valuable and potentially more dangerous as science advances. That alone should make most people uncomfortable. But let's get into specifics about for privacy concerns I have with the new 23andMe. 1. They aren't asking permission. Existing 23andMe customers have the right to delete their data or opt out of TAM's research. But the new company is not asking for opt-in permission before it takes ownership of customers' DNA. No action is required by you, the company wrote in its email to customers. In other words, if you don't say or do anything, it receives your information. Why does that matter? Because people who handed over the DNA 15 years ago, often to learn about their genetic ancestry, never imagined it might be used in this way now. Asking for new permission might significantly shrink the size and value of 23andMe's DNA database, but it would be the right thing to do given the rocky history. Richards, the court privacy ombudsman, pointed out that about a third of 23andMe customers haven't logged in for at least 3 years, so they may have no idea what is going on. Some 23andMe users never even clicked agree on a legal agreement that allowed their data to be sold like this. The word bankruptcy wasn't added to the company's privacy policy until 2022. And then there is an unknown number of deceased users who most certainly can't consent, but whose DNA still has an impact on their living genetic relatives. For me, this is an institution I don't know, so I would delete the data, said Justin Brookman, Director of Technology Policy for Consumer Reports, which advocates for consumer rights. I would go further and say the law shouldn't allow them to get it in the first place. Indeed, several states have argued that their existing genetic privacy laws don't allow 23andMe to receive the information without getting permission from every single person. Virginia has an ongoing lawsuit over the issue, and the California Attorney General's office told me it will continue to fight to protect and vindicate the rights of consumers. Wojcicki said the reason TTAM isn't seeking permission is because it involves the risk of someone missing an email and having their personal data, information, and account permanently deleted without their explicit direction. 2. They can sell your DNA again in the future. The main reason people rightly were creeped out by 23andMe's bankruptcy is that DNA data was being sold to the highest bidder. That could happen all over again. There is nothing in 23andMe's bankruptcy agreement or privacy statement to prevent TTAM from selling or transferring DNA to some other organization in the future. Wojcicki said the company did agree to some limits on a future sale. Any new buyer needs to be based in the U.S. and adopt TAM's privacy policies. It didn't specifically agree to get user consent for a future purchase, but it has to follow state laws. 3. They haven't shown they can keep your data safe. In 2023, 23andMe suffered a data breach.